welcome to edition 13 of our Killa, No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri, Pritchard, McLean. We'll do our usual disclaimer at the start. We're not making light of murders. We're not hero-worshipping serial killers. We just have a shared interest and we enjoy talking about them. And as long as we're doing it on this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
Episode 13.
Ooh!
Yeah, unlucky for some, and in this case, the gay community. Because we're doing Colin Ireland, he's got a good nickname, hasn't he?
The Gay Slayer.
The Gay Slayer.
Which is like a camp metal tribute band. But the Gay Slayer, it's a good one. It's a good nickname.
This is another really contemporary case in that he passed away in 2012, and all this was happening in sort of the 90s. So yeah, Colin Ireland, born in 1954.
In Kent.
In Kent.
And he was born to unmarried teenage parents. His mother was 17 at the time. And when he was born, his dad just buggered off. Yeah, and no one knows who he is. His mum was a newsagent's assistant, and she was struggling, and they moved back in with her parents. But by the time Colin was 6, they had moved 9 times.
Apparently, the story goes that he came home from school one day to find that his mum had moved house.
That's going to make you feel bad, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I always got the feeling Mum didn't want me around. I think it was when she moved house when I was at school. So you can see that he hasn't got a particularly stable start out in life.
No.
And then he was basically all over the place. They'd move around, they'd get really skint, they'd move back in with their parents again. She'd get sick of that, she'd try and move out again. In fact, in 1960, so when he was about 6 years old, they were in Sidcup, and they were living in these like wooden huts for the homeless women with kids, and it was like prison apparently.
Oh, it sounds depressing. I just imagine him washing things with those old dolly things that he used to wash,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like using a mangle and stuff like that. Oh, bet there was nuns there.
Oh yeah, nuns overseeing it all.
But in 1961, his mother married and moved in with a man called Saker.
Yeah. So they took the surname Saker for a while. He was an electrician, but he used to just basically like only work when he had to. So it's not like they got better off financially. Basically, when they got skint again, he'd go out and he'd find work. And he was still sort of moving all over the place. They were just, like running away from the lecky bills and stuff. And because he was always the new boy in school, he was bullied. And his mum would like let him have time off, and then when he came in, he would come in late, then he'd get caned. He was also really tall and lanky and bow-legged, so he just didn't really have much going in his favour.
And there's no structure for him in his home life at all.
No.
Like, nobody knows what's going on from one week to the next, and he's being shifted around all over the place. And
apparently he wasn't stupid, he just had a shitty education, and also he wasn't very sporty either. Was never like picked for the football team and stuff, although he did do Sea Cadets for a while and bloody loved it.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, so something about the Sea Cadets, don't know what it is.
All that fresh air.
And the uniform.
The uniform,
That'll come into it later, I'm sure.
He used to make friends at school, but he always had unthreatening friends, didn't he?
Yeah, just basically the nerds.
Yeah, the nerds.
And then in 1964, they were evicted again, so they ended up back in a women's shelter, and obviously his stepdad couldn't live there, so they were separated for a while. She got preggo again. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to, because every time she got pregnant, like with Colin, they were so poor, and she was only 17. Mm-hmm. She was like, well, I'm still having the baby. And then she got pregnant again in 64 and was like, well, I'm keeping the baby. And then what she did was she put Colin into foster care so she could keep this new baby. And then eventually the stepdad, this Saker guy, comes back on the scene. They get a bit of money, so they bring Colin out of his foster care, which is, again, just a massive disruption.
I mean, he's probably been there and everything was pretty normal, I assume, when he was in foster care. And he probably had structure and he was doing things. And it's like, no, we want you back now. And he's like,
yeah. So then he moves back in with his mum and his stepdad. And then as soon as the new baby's born, the stepdad walks out on them.
Oh, God.
Is shit in it.
Despite this, though, he was actually close to his mother.
Yeah, he was one of those like proper mummy's boy. Said that she would always do the best for them. Like she would go without food to give them food. So I think she was just trying her best. I think it was just a series of shit decisions and probably shitty life to start with for her as well.
But she did marry again.
Yeah.
And this chap, by all accounts, was a good dad.
Yeah, he was really good, the second stepdad. She, after the first one, was like, I'm not taking anyone else's name, so that's when she went back to the island thing. Yeah, he was really good, this stepdad, very kind of caring guy, and things sort of started to work out for him. However, his childhood is sort of dogged with occasions where guys have made passes at him.
Occasions of sexual bother.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So the first one, he was working at a fair one summer, and a man offered him a necklace for his mum in exchange for a sexual favour. Now, there's not much I wouldn't do for jewellery.
Well, when you put it like that, yeah.
Or a free ride on the waltzers. But he was obviously upset by it because he's only a little lad at the time.
Yeah. The second time, he was 12 years old, and a man was peering over the toilet while Colin was using it.
See, I don't think that's that bad. I mean, it's not great.
It's not
I'd be
great.
upset by it.
I think everyone's got a bit of a story like, oh, there was this weird guy and he was doing this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a reason.
And if he's in the cubicle, he's only watching him having a shit. He can't really see anything anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's not like...
Look at his knees.
And then the third time, he was at a cinema. Because this is the thing, that you'd think it's because, there's nothing to do in Kent except make a pass at little boys, but we've already established that there's a public toilet, there's a fair, there's a cinema, so the local optician...
There's an optician's.
He said that he walked up to him at the local cinema and said that he wanted sexual favours from him.
Clearly that optician wore bifocals. Hey, woo!
Paedophile focals, I think, would be more accurate. Let's not confuse gay with paedophile.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry to everyone.
And then the fourth time was a second-hand shop. No pun intended.
Just thinking, like, what? You've been in a second-hand shop and the man makes a sexual advance at you.
It's mad, isn't it? There's nothing in there that's going to be worth a hand shandy anyway.
It's not worth the humiliation, is it? Like a bloody Buffy box set or something, or like a sofa with no casters. It's not worth it.
I really wanted that Billy Bookshelf. He said he never had sexual contact, but he would come away feeling very angry and confused and frustrated at the situations he was put into, which is totally understandable.
Which is fair enough, yeah. With him on that.
And maybe plants the seed for some of his behaviour later in life. Mm-hmm. So in 1970, he's 16 years old, and he starts to commit his first crime. He tries to run away to London.
Like Dick Whittington.
Yeah, he's got a cat under one arm. And
well, he's got a cat in his hands a bit later on, but we'll get to that.
He stole the £4 that he needed to get to London, which is unbelievable,
Those
isn't it?
were the days, weren't they? £4.
Can't get a Starbucks for that.
Oh, £4.
He got caught, and then they sent him to this free expression school, which was a private school. Basically, only allowed boys in there that had emotional and intelligence problems. So that tells you something about Colin. Mm-hmm. And he got bullied there in a free expression school. I suppose they would just let them, wouldn't they? When they're like, Colin, you lanky bastard. They're like, we respect your right to express yourself.
He kicked the shit out of me. He's just letting go of his anger.
Why don't you paint a picture and tell us how that made you feel?
But this was paid for by the council as well.
Yeah, it was subsidised by the council.
Which is quite interesting. But
70s, isn't it?
I love it. But while he was there, though, he set fire to boys' belongings. But he was interested in arson, though. This is another interesting thing about Colin Ireland. He used to have nightmares, didn't he, throughout his life.
Yeah, he had this weird, like, he liked fire, but then he would have nightmares about it at the same time.
It's a bit like me. Yeah, with comedy and sort of horror films. I love them, but I'm scared at the same time. And I do have nightmares. He went into Borstal then.
He was 17. Yeah, when he got caught stealing again. Hated Borstal, escaped, and then they sent him to an even stricter one. And then at 18, kicked him out.
Which is when he got his first girlfriend.
Yeah.
But he was confused and unhappy as a young man, wasn't he?
He was just a bit fucked up, wasn't he? Yeah. And then at 21, more burglary, was put in prison this time for 18 months. Mm-hmm. So he was about 22 when he was released. And then he started living with his girlfriend. Like, first girlfriend that he started having a sexual relationship with. 22 is quite old.
Take your time, Colin.
It's all right, there's no rush. She was older than him. She was 27, had 4 kids, was a West Indian lady. And they had planned to marry each other, but that didn't pan out.
Because then in 1977... He was 23 and he was found guilty of demanding with menace.
Sounds brilliant, doesn't it?
Which I assume was just mugging.
With a red and black striped jumper on. And a slingshot.
Nash, and a dog called Nasher. He got 18 months for that.
And there's just a pattern then of loads of like petty crime, back into prison, petty crime, back into prison, being homeless, being without money. But then in 1981, things sort of take a good turn for Colin. He meets Virginia Zamel. Am I saying that right? Zammit, that's
Virginia
it. Zammit.
Zammit.
They met at a survivalism lecture. Now, he was into survivalism, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Very much so.
And she was 9 years his senior, and they got married in 1982, and this is what's confusing for me. She was wheelchair bound after she was in a car accident. What is she doing at a survivalism lecture? There aren't, like, in the nicest possible way, there's no ramps in the forests,
and there's no one around to push her.
No.
So, you know. But actually, say what you want about Colin. Bloody hell, alright, he had a problem with the gay community, but went out with older women.
Yeah.
Went out with a black lady.
Yeah.
Went out with a wheelchair-bound woman.
And Virginia Zammit doesn't sound like a terribly British name.
Oh, no. A foreign wheelchair user.
It's all that expressive thinking that he got from that first
school. He got
school.
something from that school, without a doubt.
Apparently, when he moved in with her, this Virginia woman, they moved into this like little village, settled down, and the locals used to refer to him as the Gentle Giant.
Little did they know.
It's probably because none of them are gay. But then he fell back into his old ways, started getting really aggressive again, got back into prison, and then she divorced him in 1987.
Because he'd had an affair.
Don't cheat on a lady in a wheelchair.
So, Colin. He got married twice though, didn't he? Because in 1989, he met Janet Young after a whirlwind romance.
Oh, she's hilarious. She's on all the documentaries about him with a brand new haircut.
This is the biggest thing that's ever happened to Janet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So she owned a pub called the Globe in Devon, and she tells the story of when she first saw him, doesn't she?
She does, she says, I was at the bar and Colin walked in, and he's so big, he just filled the room. And everyone was looking at him.
And he was in all camouflage.
Head to toe.
That's why he's looking. Firstly, he walks into a pub. He's 6'4", covered in camouflage. You're going to look. And it's Devon. Everyone knows each other. They're like, who's that? We're not related to him.
If somebody walked into a pub that I was used to and he was 6'4" wearing head to toe camouflage, the first thing I would think is, shit, has he got a gun?
Yeah.
That is the first thing I would think. And I swear to God, I would hit the deck. I would be out the fire exit.
He's either got a gun or learning difficulties.
Yeah.
Or both.
If there's badges on the hat, learning difficulties. If there's not, gun. That's what I would say.
So they got married after 3 months, and he was well into his survivalism then, because he would run off, wouldn't he? He'd say, I'm going...
if you need me, I'll be in the forest, yeah?
And he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch a rabbit, and then I'm going to eat that, so don't cook for me, because I'm going to be away all weekend. She said, he'd always be back by 7:30. I'd be like, can I have some sandwiches? I'm starving. So he wasn't very good at that survivalism.
Oh, rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
But he used to use that as an alibi, didn't he? When he started the murders, He used to say he was going off to Wales to do survivalism.
Yeah, if you need me, I'll just be in Wales surviving.
Yeah.
It's, but...
Not, whatever you think, I'm not in London.
I am not
luring gay men
in the
into
Colburn
murders.
pub. I am in Wales. But Janet said that he was quite a controlling husband, but not violent. But there is one incident.
Yeah.
They're running a bed and breakfast as well at this point. Which, I'm just thinking, if 4 in a bed was around at that time, them two running up and down the corridors kicking off with each other.
Well, yeah, she tells this one night where he locked her out their bedroom. Yeah. So she went into one of this bed and breakfast rooms that wasn't being used. And he came in and he smashed the lights. There was no light, and he was running around the bed, going, "Where am I now?" Trying to freak her out. Bear in mind, they got married after 3 months, and after 4 months, he left her. So this is all like, as soon as you expect that systematic kind of abuse to come after 10 years of grinding them down. If they're doing it after 3 months, kick them out, Janet.
The signs were there, Janet, the camouflage, head to toe.
So she went to stay with her mum, didn't she?
Yeah.
His son went on the train with the kid.
And while she was away, Colin withdrew all the money from her account. Well, it was their joint account, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Took everything from the house and buggered off.
Basically did the bong with all the money.
Left them with nothing.
Which is a dick move.
Yeah, let that be a lesson.
But by 1991, he was homeless again.
Yeah.
Well, he was sort of drifting around, and then he finally got a job in a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
And because he'd been homeless himself before, apparently he's quite well liked by the people who came in, because he could sort of empathise with them. Although he was a homophobe.
Yeah, apparently I'd pulled up a few times about choice language at
Yeah.
gay gentlemen and ladies.
It's fine to say gay, but not if you put the word dirty before it, Colin. So if you can just try and bear that in mind.
The word disgusting, dirty, and evil, not allowed before it. But I've got a theory about why I work with the homeless. I don't think he was particularly caring. I think he saw the homeless as maybe potential victims.
I think you're right.
I think he's like,
because
these people are vulnerable.
What's interesting about Colin is he is like us in that he was really into serial killers.
Yes, he was very interested,
He used to read a lot about them. And he picked gay people because he knew that would be one of the groups that you can get away with kind of killing for longer. So yeah, I actually think you're right there, that I think he was staking it out and thinking, how
Testing
easy
the
is
water.
it? Yeah, how easy is it going to be to off these homeless people? They said he was a good worker because he worked hard and he kind of liked the structure. But then in the same breath they say, we did have an issue once because they had like a guy who was a bit annoying who used to come in. Colin said he'd sort him out, didn't he?
He did. He said he'd sort him out, and they were like, what do you mean? He said, I'll get rid of him. And they said, what? And he said, yeah, I'll force a couple of snooker balls down his throat. Oh.
Okay, well, that's a great... We appreciate you brainstorming in session.
Yeah,
I was thinking more that we could politely ask him to keep his trousers on when he's in the common room.
I think what you've said is interesting.
I love your enthusiasm, Colin. I love it.
After that, he was asked to leave because apparently he was inappropriately touching some of the females that worked there.
Yeah,
which is never proven. But...
Yeah, it says it's unfounded, but I would say that with everything we know about him, it's not completely beyond expectation, is it?
No, not at all.
So life was really shit for him. He'd been asked to... He got a job at pallet smashing, which is any job where a machine could do it, I think is really sad, isn't it?
Yeah, and he started to get very frustrated.
Because he wasn't stupid, he just never had a chance and had obviously like a really tumultuous upbringing. So he was like... He made a New Year's resolution.
He did, and that resolution wasn't to lose weight or... Well, actually, he did technically get a resolution to take up a new hobby because he decided to be a serial killer.
Which is just astounding that someone makes a New Year's resolution to do that.
You know, not like...
And also sticks to it.
Yeah, fair play to him, he stuck to it. I've never stuck to a New Year's resolution. I've made one.
He was killing in June. Now, that's nearly halfway through the year, isn't it?
So he planned all the way up to then. And he began to do this. I mean, I don't know what the bloody hell went through his head, but he started going to the Colin in London.
Yeah, because he knew about serial killers as well. He knew that most of them kill within 7 miles of their home. So he lived in Southend-on-Sea, and he deliberately went, right, I'm going to kill in London because they won't suspect me in Southend because it was, miles away. So he started going to this pub, which is sort of a famous gay pub.
Leather bar.
Yeah, leather bar, the Colin pub, and other serial killers have used it as well.
They have. Dennis Nilsson, Michael Lupo, who I only recently found out about. It sounds very interesting. He was a gay serial killer, and he operated from the East Saint Laurent shop on the King's Road.
Pretty cool.
#glamour.
Yeah, had a flower shop in Chelsea.
Yeah, so Ireland, Nilsson, and Lupo all operated and picked victims from that pub.
It's not a pub anymore, though, isn't it?
No, it's a gastro pub now.
There's people eating different things.
Yeah.
And they've kept all the glory holes up as a mark of respect. Yeah, because it was a leather bar, as you say, and everyone used to wear colour-coded handkerchiefs to like indicate what they were into.
And apparently there's 2 things. So it was all people who might have been into S&M, but there's a top and a bottom, isn't there?
Yeah.
So Ireland posed as a top, which meant the dominant one.
Yeah.
And the first victim, sadly, Peter Walker, was a bottom.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're being facetious, doesn't it?
No, but it is actually, they did call it a top, which I think is the most like 19th. They're like, oh, Colin, he's a real top.
He's a real top.
And because they used to wear a handkerchief that used to, I don't know what it was. I'm sure if we looked into it, you could find out. Presumably it was a camouflage handkerchief. And I can imagine it caused, because most men are colourblind. So imagine being like, oh, this one's perfect. He likes long walks on the beach and getting him home. Be like, oh no, sorry, this is green, not red. I like shitting on people. When will I learn?
This guy, Peter Walker, though, theatre director.
Yes, choreographer, theatre
Out
director.
and proud.
Good for him.
Gay gentleman. He met Colin at the Colin because Colin spilt a drink on him. And Walker invited him to come home with him. Colin, at this point, had developed a murder kit.
Yeah, like, he's so Dexter about it.
Yeah,
So he had, like, a spare set of clothes in there.
Mm-hmm.
He had cord to tie them up with.
A knife.
Gloves, because he didn't want to leave any fingerprints.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming a plastic bag, because that's what he ended up doing to poor old Paul Walker.
Yeah, he beat him, God, with a belt, with a dog lead, because Paul had 2 dogs that he locked in the kitchen while he was attacking their owner. He beat him with a belt, dog lead, punched him, just basically beat the shit out of him, and then suffocated him with a plastic bag.
Yeah, and then set fire to his pubic hair because he wanted to know what it smelled like.
Which is just mental, isn't it? That, like, everything else is so planned, and then while he's cleaning up...
Actually...
I've always wondered what burning pubes smell like. It's easy enough to snip off some of your own and try.
Exactly, just do it to yourself, Colin. Yeah. If you're really that curious.
And it serves him right, because I know from having not burnt my pubes, but, like, burning hair is the worst smell.
Oh, it stinks, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's one of my bits of satisfaction, and be like, well, if you had to smell like Colin, so...
I've often tried to light a cigarette off the gas ring, and occasionally I've just got my hair. Ooh, that's how I'm going to go. I think, but as well, he used to clean the flat. He cleaned it of fingerprints.
It's a gay flat, won't need much cleaning.
Oh, it's going to be fine, isn't it? But he was actually very angry at Colin Ireland because he found out Paul Walker was HIV positive.
Yeah.
Which incensed him. And then he decided to... What he did then was to his corpse. He put a condom in Paul Walker's mouth.
And up his nose.
Peter Walker... Not Paul Walker. He's the fucking guy from Fast and Furious. He put a condom in Peter Walker... He put a condom in Peter Walker's mouth. Then he put 2 teddy bears in the 69 position on the bed. Fucking grow up, Colin.
Well, grow up to Peter Walker. He's got teddy bears on his bed still.
They were gifts from the theatre.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? He did this to humiliate him when he found out he had HIV. I don't know how he found out he had HIV.
No,
like, there's a list on the fridge, like, take the bins out, send Nana a card, don't forget you've got HIV. So I don't know, like, what he stumbled across. He must have been going properly rooting through stuff.
He must have had a good old look. I mean, unless he found a letter, or... The only way I can see is if you knew what medication you would take.
Oh, shit, yeah.
That's the only way that I can think. But how would... I mean, I don't know.
Something weird about Colin Ireland that he used to do is he'd kill them, clean the flat, get rid of all the fingerprints, which is so, like, on it, isn't it? That is someone who knows about serial killers. And then he wouldn't leave because it would be conspicuous leaving at, like, 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd wait till rush hour, and then he'd just walk out with everyone else, which is, like, so smart.
Cunning, isn't it?
Yeah.
That?
And then he would, like, throw his clothes out the train window all the way back to Southend. So, like, there was never any trace of anything.
So thorough.
Yeah. And then the body was found, but police thought, and this happens a lot in this case, it's just gay sex games gone wrong,
it's just the gays, isn't it, with things that they do, yeah.
Because the police were, I mean, of course they're open-minded now, I imagine, but they were pretty homophobic at the time.
Yeah.
So he was like, why hasn't anyone found my murder? Because he kind of wanted the glory. So he phoned the Samaritans and he gave them Peter Walker's address and he said, there's 2 dogs locked in the kitchen here. They said, how do you know that? And he said, because I killed their owner and I locked them in. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
And the police had not identified it as a murder because of these whole sex games thing. And it was at a really interesting time because the day before Peter Walker was murdered, the law changed, didn't it?
It did. So if you're into S&M and you inflicted injuries on somebody, even if they wanted you to do it, and it killed that person, you could be tried for murder.
Yeah.
So the gay community were just
or assault or anything like that, even if it was consensual, you could still be done for it. So when they eventually put 2 and 2 together and they said to the gay community, hey, which of you are into S&M? And they were like, fuck off, as if we're going to tell you. Because they had, like, it's really interesting listening to some of the people who used to go to the Colhern talking about the relationship with the police at the time, in that the police would raid gay bars all the time.
Yeah, there's an incident where there's a chap talking about the Vauxhall Tavern, I think it's called, and Lily Savage was performing there, and the police raided it, and all the police were wearing gloves because
they didn't want to catch
AIDS. Because, I mean, come on, how backward is that?
Yeah.
You would think if anyone was well up on, like, the actual facts of things, it should be the police.
And apparently there had been whispers in the gay community earlier that they thought someone was targeting them before the police cottoned on. But they were like, well, the police aren't going to do anything because they hate us anyway. So they had this really sort of fractious relationship between the gay community and the police, and at some point they had to kind of learn to communicate with each other.
Hopefully things are better now.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Not as in we'll see when I start killing all those gay people.
Yeah.
I just mean like...
We'll see.
TikTok.
Are you the pusher? The Canal Street pusher?
So the second murder was a librarian, Christopher Dunn.
And this was in May 1993. Christopher Dunn, who we met at the Colburn again. They went back to his flat, watched an S&M porno to get ready. Colin Ireland says, "Okay, Christopher, go into your room, get ready," which he did. And he just wore, what was it, a little belt?
He was naked, but for a little studded belt, which I think is a little flourish of accessorising.
Quite nice. Yeah. Well done, Christopher. And the same happened again, unfortunately. Colin Ireland tied him up by his feet and his hands. He tortured him. He burnt him with cigarettes and he put a lighter to his testicles.
Ugh.
Took his PIN number, strangled the poor fellow with a piece of cord, stayed with the body again, cleared the flat, left in rush hour, went to the cash machine, withdrew £200 from Dunn's account.
Because he was on the dole at the time, and he basically added up how much he thought the trip had cost him. He was like, right, well, I spent 60 quid on train tickets.
And there was food.
Yeah, then there was food. I've got to pay for my time.
I've got to buy the stuff to clean the flat.
Yeah, I got a taxi over here, new clothes, about 200 quid. So he didn't take out everything from his account. He basically covered his costs.
He's like, he should be a comedian, or he's like the Alan Partridge, isn't he? He's very Partridge. Wow, £200, thank you very much.
It's 180, but I'll round it up and I'll claim this back against tax.
And this poor chap, 2 days later, was found by his friend. Christopher Dunn was found by his friend 2 days later.
And the police
police assumed it was a sex game gone wrong, and there was no link. In my opinion, because I'm not a policeman, believe it or not, I would assume, I mean, I know there's different police for different areas, but if two prostitutes have been murdered, if two gay men have been murdered, or if two homeless people have been murdered, I think they should be like, hold on a minute.
And they both were last seen at the same pub.
Yeah, you would think that they'd go, hold on a moment, let's just cross-check all those details, because that's something a bit strange.
I suppose we don't know daily how many gay and or, homeless people or prostitutes are. Because in London, I imagine that's a daily occurrence, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, it's interesting though, but you would think that they just...
I think there's a lot in common with them all.
Sex game gone wrong.
Yeah.
Every time. How many people have been killed and they've just gone, it's just...
Maybe it was when Michael Hutchinson was big in the news and it was just in it was in their head.
Maybe it's that, yeah.
So 6 days later, he kills his third victim, who is Perry Bradley III, who's from Texas, who was not out as gay. So this is another reason that threw the police, because they didn't even think he was gay.
And it's quite a high profile, really, because his father was a US congressman and he was I think he was quite wealthy. He lived in Kensington.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So he was a rich businessman. Also, he wasn't into S&M. It was just Colin sort of convinced him, and he basically said, I can only orgasm if you're tied up. So he was like, okay. Right, and tied himself up.
And it's a strange one, this. It's just horrible, isn't it? Because he ties the guy up and he says to him, go to sleep.
He asked for his PIN number in his card.
Yeah, he asked for his PIN number. And he's quite resistant, Perry Bradley.
Yeah, he said, well, I'll come with you to the cash point. And he went, no, you're not doing that. And then he goes to go to sleep. And he did. And then while Perry was asleep, he strangled him with a noose. Yeah. And then put a doll on him. It's all just really weird.
And then made himself a sandwich. I mean, I know he's not going to make one for Perry Bradley, but he makes himself a sandwich. How, after doing that, I'm hungry, I'm just going to see what's in his fridge. That is just cold, isn't it? Yeah. That is cold.
It will be, it's been in the fridge.
Just need to keep his bread in the fridge. So again, cleans up, leaves at rush hour, does all the things the same. But now he's starting to get pissed off because there is no publicity. Yeah. Colin Ireland is livid.
Yeah, he took money as well, so he found 100 quid in the flat, and then he took £200 out to cover his costs. And then he's getting really, really cross. So 3 days later, he kills his next victim, because he's like, why are they not... He thinks it's like a slight on him, but it's because the first one they thought was a sex game, second one they thought was a sex game, third one they didn't even think he was gay, They just didn't know what had happened. They thought it was another sex. Basically, they're just going, oh, it's the gays, isn't it? So he kills Andrew Collier, who's a warden in like a residential home.
So again, tied up, put him face down, took his PIN number. Tried to. Collier refuses.
Which makes me like him more.
Yeah, good for you.
It's amazing that you've got someone who's like 6'3", they've tied you up, got a noose around your neck, and they go, give me a PIN number, he goes, fuck you.
Yeah,
and
don't think so.
He gets strangled to death, sadly.
Then Ireland finds out that Collier was HIV positive, which, again, Colin's upset. And he burnt parts of Collier's body, this is the worst.
He got really angry,
This is like pissed off to the max and beyond, right? Burns parts of his body, puts a condom on Collier's penis, gets Collier's cat, kills it, puts a condom on the cat's tail, and puts the cat's mouth near Collier's penis, so the cat is basically 69 in him.
And puts the cat's tail in his mouth.
Puts the cat's tail in his mouth.
It's like a fucked up thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's really weird, but it's kind of important, and it's not a good thing that he did it, but that's when the police made the link between that and the 2 teddy bears from the first murder, the 69er. This is the flat where he fucked up.
Yep.
Because he cleaned it for fingerprints, but he forgot about one, didn't he?
Yes, he did. By all accounts, there was a disturbance outside Collier's flat about 1 a.m, and they worked this out, and they thought, oh, well, what does somebody do when there's a disturbance outside? You go to the window to have a look, which what Ireland had done. He'd gone to the windowsill, he'd leaned on the windowsill, and he'd left a fingerprint, which he'd failed to wipe off, which is quite, against all the other shit that they didn't do.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive from the forensics there.
Yeah, because on all the documentaries, they're like, it's a very impressive piece of policing, and it's like, if you ignore all the other massive fuck-ups they're making, that one bit of luck,
if you
shouldn't you just be generally dusting for fingerprints anyway?
So they had the fingerprint, but unfortunately, back in the 90s, there wasn't a computer database.
That's mad, isn't it?
I know, you always assume that because we're so used to it now, you think, oh, they must have had it then.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, the fact that the men are all gay should be link enough.
Yeah.
And they were on the same pub. The cat and the teddy bears were the thing that made them go, oh shit, actually.
Something similar here, yeah. And 5 days later, after killing Andrew, he called Kensington police and said, listen, I've killed 4 people and I'm going to kill another. Mm-hmm. And you have to stop me because I can't stop myself. And then he called Battersea police and he said, hey, do you remember Peter Walker? You just said it was a sex game, or you might want to look into that. Like, he's desperate. He's desperate to be recognised as a serial killer. And he's sort of desperate to be caught, I think.
I think he was desperate to get the serial killer name first. I think he just wanted, like, the Gay Slayer or the nickname.
Yeah.
I think
I wonder what they're going to call me.
I think he really wanted that.
To be honest, if I ever had the inclination to go killing, I'd be like...
Which you wouldn't.
Which I wouldn't, because I have the disposable income. And I'm not big enough to force people's PIN number out.
And you can't be arsed, just be honest.
Yeah.
I can't be arsed either.
Yeah. If I cannot go upstairs for a whole day in my house, I won't. So I'm not going to kill people. So he, on the same day as phoning the police, he killed his last victim.
Yep.
Which was Emmanuel Spiteri.
Yep. And that was the 12th of June. Again, he was in the Coleherne, Emmanuel Spiteri. But Ireland didn't approach him at the pub. He saw him at the tube station and spoke to him there. And they agreed to go home together. Here we go. That's it. Yeah. So he met him at the tube station. They arranged to go home. And it was pretty much the same setup. Apart from what he did was Colin Ireland set fire to the room, which he hoped would burn down the whole block of flats. But it just burnt itself out. But he'd also took the PIN number as well, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And the landlady sadly found Emmanuel Spiteri 4 days later. Oh, no, the same day, sorry. So he'd killed 4 times in 17 days.
It's mad, isn't it?
4 times.
And the day after, he called the police and said to look for a body in the fire. And that he said, I'd killed 5 now, so now I'm a serial killer. I probably won't do it again. Which is like, I don't believe you.
But it's quite interesting, though, because this is the one where they realise that they can get some information out there to the public, because on the way to Emmanuel Spiteri's flat, they went through Charing Cross train station, which, and I find this amazing, had one of the first CCTV cameras in London. And this was in the 90s.
Yeah.
I just assume we had these since the 70s, 80s. So they actually found this footage of Emmanuel with Colin. and they released it, put it in the newspapers, and they were swamped with information. They had hundreds of new leads, which was great news for the police dogs. Bit gentle humour there. It's nice. But then they started thinking things. They thought the killer might have AIDS. That it was a revenge thing.
Yeah, but they got some psychologists involved who were a bit more on they were like, no, it'll be really physically big, because he's got to be confident that he'll overpower his victims. He won't be gay. He'll be pretending to be gay, and it's about exacting revenge for something. Yeah. They were pretty bang on the money, weren't they?
Yeah, they were very good actually.
And there was quite a lot of calls from the gay community saying from the picture from the CCTV that they got an E-fit together that looks just like him.
Yeah, it was a spitting image. So much did it look like him that Richard Higgs, who appears on a couple of documentaries, who was a colleague of...
he was a friend.
Yeah, he was a friend.
Downgraded himself.
Just put colleague, associate. He saw the E-fit and he was like, oh, it looks like Colin.
He said, it can't be him, he's away at his survival weekends.
Oh, he's on his bloody survival weekends. And also, there was an occasion where Colin Ireland got round to Richard Higgs' house and said, it was on the news about the murders, and he said, oh, what do you think of this then? And Richard Higgs said, another nutter on the loose. And Colin just went, ha 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 ha. But it's...
What does he think he's going to say when he's like, oh, what do you think about this then? I think the guy's a bloody hero.
What a legend.
If he was here now, I'd shake his hand.
Well, today's your lucky day, Richard. Yeah, that's exactly what he thinks he's going to say. But Colin Ireland as well went to Richard Higgs' house after the final murder that he committed and was acting incredibly strangely. Because what he did was, Richard Higgs had a little girl. He goes to drop... Richard Higgs was like, well, I'm going to drop Colin off at home. The kid came with them. And Colin asked the kid if she wanted to go in and see the gerbils, which is fine.
I wonder if that's not some gay slang for something.
Yeah. Do you want to come and see me gerbils? And then it's really strange because the guy, Richard Higgs, says he was talking in the third tense because Richard Higgs was like, well, something's not right here. And he grabbed the kid's hand and he said, oh, no, we've not got time. And he said... And Colin was saying, I ask if she wants to see the gerbils. He says they haven't got time. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird. And his mate said that did think that was quite odd.
Yeah, I think it's that thing that they say about serial killers when they start to unravel.
Yeah.
And it happens at different points for different killers. But with him, it's obviously when he's gone, right, I'm a serial killer now. He started to just mentally be all over the place. Because the net was closing in. There's E-fits out there. Loads of gay people have said, I've seen this guy in the Colburn. They're phoning up and saying, there's pictures from the CCTV. They look just like him. He's really distinct looking.
He's massive.
Yeah, he's massive, wandering around in camouflage. Like, it's obvious who it is. He sees himself on the news, goes to a solicitor and says, I want to make it, is it an affidavit?
Something like that.
And he says, I basically want to say, I went home with this guy, but I didn't kill him or fuck him. So what happened was I went home with this guy. We got to his door. There was another man there. Yeah. And I said, oh, no, I don't want a threesome. And I left. But where he comes unstuck was the fact that his fingerprint was inside the flat. So he's obviously lying. So when the police arrest him, when they find out, because they're so clever how they found out he was in Southend-on-Sea. Because he made of the calls, didn't he, from, is it Fenchurch?
Fenchurch Street Station. And one of the experts listening to the calls, he recognised a noise in the background that was just particular to that station, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like a certain noise that is just particular to that station that would only be heard there, and he's like, that's Fenchurch Street, and that's on the way. You get the train to Southend from there.
So that's how they came to the Southend decision. They basically put all these bits together, arrested him, obviously the fingerprint matched, and then they could only sort of pin him for two, though. Andrew was one of them.
And yeah, they did this quite tactically as well, because they knew it would frustrate him, because he wanted to be a serial killer, and if they just pinned two on him, he would just be like, murderer. I did 5. I want all of them. I want to be a serial killer, and it did work because he cracked. He was like, I can't take this anymore. I want to confess.
Yeah.
And admitted it all.
And he gave which is why we've got so much to talk about, is he gave really detailed descriptions of what he did, how he did it, who he did it to, and when he did it. He wanted to make 4 things very clear. One, he was not on drugs
No.
or drunk when he did it. So he's completely sober when he did the murders. 2, he's not gay or bisexual. 3, he didn't do anything sexual with them. There was no nudity from his behalf. And 4, he wasn't sexually aroused by the murders. So what he was saying to them is that he thought that he was ridding society of deviance, and he emphasised S&M because he didn't like gays, but they weren't deviants, but S&M were. It was a deviant thing, so he was ridding society of them. And he was really into his... When people found out in the news that he was into his serial killers, he used to read Robert Reisler's book, Whoever Fights Monsters. And they tried to ban it from all libraries because they're like, well, what if he read that? Then we're going to get serious. Let's start burning books.
Well,
that's the most sensible thing to do.
You're going to start banning everything. If you ban one book, you're going to have to ban everything off TV.
Yeah,
you can't have that. You just burn all the books, get rid of tellies. Let's all stare at each other all day. And I guarantee there'll be more murders. I guarantee.
He was prosecuted, sent to prison. He was on a list of people who should remain in prison for all his life. Rumour has it was buried a bit, but he was shared a cell with a child killer whom he killed. He murdered in Wakefield, and they moved into another prison where he died in 2012.
Died in 2012, and it was February 2012. So he didn't get to see the Olympics.
No opening ceremony for you,
no ceremony
mate.
for you. Actually, having said that, after that, I didn't like the opening ceremony. I wish I was Colin Ireland.
I don't know, I love the NHS, I quite like that bit.
It's not for me.
So that is Colin Ireland, the gay slayer.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting one.
It is interesting. Very interesting one.
I think he's got a fairly, if you're playing the bingo or the drinking game, a fairly typical serial killer upbringing.
Yep.
Of fire, not abusive parents, but very, upsetting childhood. And then the weird gay experiences. And then the murders. The New Year's resolution thing, though, I think is fucking brilliant.
Stuck to it.
So if
we give him one thing, we'll give him that.
He's the man of his resolve. We did want to do a lady next, but I think we might do that for the next one.
Yeah, I don't want to do a baby farm killer. It's boring.
Women, can you stop just killing babies because it's boring?
Yeah, it is tedious.
Or patience.
Yeah, we don't want, angels of death. We don't want bloody baby farming Victorian bitches. Just do something
That's a bit strong, Rachel.
I know. Bitches.
So we decided that we're going to go for the Metal Fang.
Yeah. We can't pronounce his name yet.
Is it Nikolai?
Nikolai.
It begins with D.
I did pronounce it before and I can't remember it.
Yeah.
But we're doing him. He's got metal teeth. You're going to love him.
He's got white metal teeth.
And he's a cannibal.
He's really... In fact, if you're of a nervous disposition, just skip the next one because it's pretty gruesome.
He's a one-man steak knife. He's going to be great.
This has been the All Killer No Filler podcast. Please in fact, Colin Ireland was a suggestion that you guys tweeted to us. So anything that you want to hear us talk about within reason, other than what colour our underwear is, please just let us know.
And make sure the serial killers are not spree.
We're not interested in Ralmo.
3 or more. 3 or more.
That's the rule.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for listening. You can find us on Twitter at KillNoFillPod. Yeah, this has been us. Thanks very much for listening.